Okay.
We will start with non-agenda public comment. I did have one or two requests for non-agenda public comments. Would you identify yourself?
Hello?
Yes.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, this is the first time that I'm speaking at your meeting. So, okay. My name is Terry Ann Skelly. I registered earlier.
Yes.
Okay, great.
I'm sorry, can you
would you
repeat
like-
your name again, please?
Yes, sure. It's Terry Ann Skelly. I registered earlier. Would you like me to speak now?
Why don't you spell
Yeah,
your
I
name
just need
for Mary and then yes.
Okay, sure. It's Terry Ann, TerriAnn, SKELLY.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so you've got 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, great. So my name is Terry Ann Skelly. I'm a mother of 3 adult sons for whom COVID has been a devastating experience. I've been very concerned about the number of pot shops and marijuana businesses in our area. This community appears to be destined to become home to marijuana businesses, whether you want them or not. If the city council decides to bring even more marijuana businesses to the city, please ask your councilman, Chris Cate, to push back. Tonight, I bring to you a bit of good news. At least one of the more obnoxious strategies used by this industry, your in-your-face billboard advertising, the court has said no to. The Superior Court recognized billboard advertising on interstate highways undermines Prop 64's promise not to advertise to children. The court ruled against the California Bureau of Cannabis Control, the BCC, who loosely interpreted that a 15-mile radius from California borders would satisfy the intent of Prop 64. Not surprisingly, marijuana billboards began sprouting up along interstate highways like Highway 8 and Highway 15. The court directed the BBC to contact all marijuana business owners to inform them that within the next 30 days that they can no longer advertise on these interstate highways. Please contact Kate's office if the billboards are still up in February. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other non-agenda public comment tonight? All right, hearing none, we will proceed with the meeting. Are there any modifications to the agenda? I don't have any. Hearing none, we will, we need to adopt the previous meeting minutes. Those are sent out some time ago. And are there any corrections to the minutes?
I'll make a motion, we adopt the minutes, or you don't have to.
That's all right. I'll accept them. Given
Right.
instead of any corrections. Let's see, so somebody's making some background noise. Did you mute yourself if you're not speaking? Thank you. All right, we'll go on to report of the chair. We haven't met since November, so there has been quite a bit of mail. Assessment letter for Nancy Bridge Business Park. This was fairly simple. They're subdividing 2 previously graded parcel lots into 3, making 4 industrial buildings. We'll probably see that one eventually. If you're not speaking, would you mute yourself, please? Thank you. We got the initial plans for the Flying T Serena Valley Golf Entertainment Center. That's the old Carroll Canyon Golf and Rec. We approved a plan amendment initiation on that a little while ago. There's quite a bit of material to review. So I asked Craig Jackson and Lil Nover to form a subcommittee, and they will be reviewing that project and coming back with comments on it when that one is comes before us. Greg, do you have anything to say about that?
I would have just a couple of comments, having looked over it. The biologist report cites a number of figures, none of which were present to be reviewed, although they mainly deal with issues outside of our control. They're, I think, plant pictures for the most part. But the actual diagram or layout map indicates that there will be some retaining walls. And for the life of me, although it was 60 years ago that I had a course in map reading in ROTC, I could not identify where the retaining walls were. So additional information will have to be sought for them. Otherwise, looking at it, it will be an addition to the Mira Mesa community planning area that I think we can welcome. The concern that exists is, will it have an adverse impact on the Carroll Canyon Road? And that, I think, will need to be addressed. There are a long list from the city planning department that indicate there are issues that need to be submitted to them, but those again are outside our authority. But it's always reassuring if the plan has in fact passed muster with the city.
Hey, thank you, Craig. And as I get more from them, I will forward on to you.
Great.
I forward to you also a legal analysis regarding community planning groups and changes that the city attorney has recommended to 600-24. For the most part, it's things that we've discussed before. Is the results of the grand jury investigation, the audit, and the other basically attacks on planning groups. This is the end result of that. Take a look at it. Let me know if you have any concerns about it. So far, it didn't look that unreasonable to me. The changes they're recommending. The only thing was basically forbidding the city council or planning commission to use our recommendations for late, which seems a little extreme. Okay, then there was also a letter from Park and Rec that Council 700-24, which governs the recreation advisory groups, will have to be revised because of the city attorney's letter regarding planning groups. So there's still the community recreation groups are still in kind of a formative stage because of that. There was a NORA for a right of entry permit for the San Diego Mountain Bike Association for trail improvements. It says to improve and maintain existing approved trail systems, to increase trail sustainability and safety, and to install trailheads, access points, interpretive wayfinding, warning signage, and billbox and commemorative sightings. Then there was a notice of preparation for a draft EIR for a city polystyrene ordinance. The city is proposing an ordinance that would amend the San Diego Municipal Code to restrict the use of polystyrene products throughout the city. The proposed ordinance includes a ban on the distribution of egg cartons, food serviceware, or food trays that are made in whole or in part from polystyrene foam. Just today, I got an email regarding substantial conformance review changes for the Three Roots project. I emailed Allegra to ask what that was about. Basically what I got was some very detailed designs, and she said that essentially that's what it is, that they are required to come back with more specific designs for what they're going to build than was in the original plan. So it doesn't appear to be anything very substantial. I also received the draft presentation from the Parks and Recreation Coalition that we'll hear tonight. I sent that out to everyone. Finally, just this evening, I got a letter from a resident who has been trying to keep Mira Mesa lanes open saying that Brixmor is basically forcing them out, that they are saying pay up to $500,000 and back rent you owe, or you're gone, and that they don't want to renew their lease also. So that's unfortunate. Of course, they haven't been able to have any, they haven't had any business for nearly a year now, so it's awfully hard for them to survive under that. And it looks like Brixmor doesn't really want them to. It's unfortunate. All right. Planning group elections. Every 2 years, we do elections for half of the members of the planning group. I sent out a notice about that earlier also. Fortunately, we didn't have elections last year because, you know, with the pandemic just starting, the groups that did have to, it had a really rough time. Now we're a little more used to doing things electronically. The city sent out some recommendations for software that we can use for doing the election. We'll do it that way. I need to form an election subcommittee. I'll chair that committee, but I could use 1 or 2 other people on it to help with some things. Is there anyone who'd like to volunteer for that?
Jeff, I'll help out if you need.
Thank you, Craig. Okay, it's just, there's not really a lot to do. It's just a matter of, we need to check out these electronic systems and choose one, and you know, make sure we have notices out, things like that.
If I'm happy to help, I don't know if there's a condition on whether someone's running or not.
There is, it does say that someone who's running cannot be on the election committee, unfortunately. So otherwise, I would love to have you, Kent. Could I get one more person?
Hi, my name is Annabelle Grealish. I'm a planning student at SDSU in the master's program. I haven't been to any of the meetings yet so far, but if you need some help, I would be happy to help.
Okay, I think, would you put your information in the chat, and
Yeah.
we'll see what we need to do.
Okay.
Okay, the other thing about the election is there are rules both for voting eligibility and eligibility to run. The requirements to run for the planning group are that you have attended 2 of the last 12 meetings, include this meeting. So that's all the meetings from September 2019 until now. The problem is with the electronic meetings, we haven't been able to put out a sign-in sheet, so our records are not all that good. What I'm going to do is I'll put out a request for anyone who would like to run for a position, and then I will try to confirm that they have attended. If they positively swear they've been, I can't confirm it. My tendency is to go with it anyway.
Jeff, this is Mary. Have you been recording the meetings?
I've recorded some of them. I'm recording this one. So yeah.
So if you record the meetings, I think we'll be able to pull attendance from that.
Right. I also have the chat records from all of them. So anyone who said anything in the chat, I have that record. So,
but if it's just a phone number, then I won't have a name.
Right.
But real quick, can I ask who's at 858-336-7234?
That's me, Terry Ann Skelly. I spoke already in non-agenda public comment.
Yeah, can you mute your computer? We hear everything in the background.
I'm not
Please.
even on my computer.
And who?
Yeah, okay.
Oh,
I'm on
cell
my
phone. Who is 619-550-6037?
That's Qua, and I have been on mute.
Okay, I'm sorry, what is your name?
That was Quan Nguyen.
Oh,
So to
okay.
mute on my, how do I?
Already, I see you on the chat or on the Zoom. So, okay, I got your name on the attendance. Thank you.
Excuse me, how do I mute on my phone? Is it *6?
I just usually press the mute button from my keypad, like when you're on the phone.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
All right, so if anyone would like to, who's not currently on the planning group, would like to be on the planning group, and you meet those qualifications, could you please let me know? You can put your name in the chat right now, or you can email me after the meeting, and I will contact you.
Hey, Jeff, if
Yeah.
you need another person to help you, I will do that also.
Thank you, Joe. Okay. To qualify to vote in the election is a little easier, but you still have to be registered. That means, now what you typically do to register is to give a form to the secretary and show some proof of residence. That also has been hard to do with electronic meetings. So I think what we should do is accept email applications up until the February meeting. So it's a little more complicated this year. I don't expect, occasionally we have had controversial elections. I'm not anticipating one, but you never know, so. All right. Alex, what's going on with the community plan update?
Happy New Year, everyone. Good evening. Alex Frost, project manager for the Mira Mesa Community Plan Update. Apologies, we had to postpone today's meeting. We're still finishing up the 3 land use scenarios, and also the new administration is now in place and they're still getting situated. So hopefully at the February 18th meeting, we can present the draft land uses and have a robust discussion related to that. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me and we can talk. But yeah, I will try to have materials 1 week before for review, but yeah, that's the intent. Thanks.
All right, so will that meeting be at 5:30?
Yeah, we should probably start a little early to just give enough time for conversation dialogue.
Okay. We will look forward to that. So Carolyn, you're up. Parks and Recreation Coalition. Carolyn Chase, are you there?
Yes, have you enabled screen sharing, please?
Just a second. Okay, should be ready now.
Okay, I'll do my side of things here. And how does that look? Can everybody see that okay? Should say Parks for All.
Yes, we can see it.
All right. Well, thank you very much for having me tonight. My name is Carolyn Chase. I'm a former city planning commissioner, current secretary of the Pacific Beach Planning Group, and president of Fiesta Island Dog Owners, if there are any people having issues with dog parks. Thanks for having us. I'm representing an all-volunteer group called the Parks and Recreation Coalition. We're made up of all volunteers. We have architects, landscape architects, city planners, park planners, and just community planners, just residents, volunteers who care about parks. And we reviewed these plans and appendices. I gave comments at the November 3rd City Council hearing, and the plan was not passed at that time. It is part of what they call complete communities, where they did pass the housing, which incentivizes density along transit routes and incentivizes smaller units, and then the mobility, which changes the way they're doing mobility planning and transportation. Why am I here tonight? Because the city has undertaken a Parks Master Plan, which is the first one they've done in 50 years. And We love parks, we need parks. Parks are vital to everyone, and it's been especially illustrated during the pandemic. This new master plan has significant changes to park standards and the way development impact fees are calculated, in addition to many other things, which we'll touch on. It's going to have to last a long time. It took them 50 years to get to this one. So we think it's very important to take the time to make it the best it could possibly be. It will be the basis for any future bond measures that are raised. So it's important to build public support from the beginning. The goals are admirable. They're trying to address inequities in the park system, including changing how fees are done to create a citywide parks fee, which we do support, but we have questions about how it's being calculated and how it will be allocated. So we appreciate that the city spent a lot of time at this, but we think the election was an artificial deadline. They spent most of their time on housing and mobility and didn't spend enough time with the Parks Master Plan. We've sorted our issues into these 5 categories. The first issue we have is it reduces the importance of parkland for our growing city by replacing the existing 2.8 park acreage standard, which is simple as understand, by an untested and complicated point system, which I'll talk a little bit about later. Limited resident participation. They have a long list of public meetings they had prior, but after release of the draft, they had a lot fewer, and they declined to present to any planning groups or recreational groups that still exist. I'll touch on equity, funding. We all know there's not enough money, and the prioritization framework, which is how they would propose to allocate the new citywide park fee. I'll hit a little bit on point system and park standards. Then there's commercialization issues, MSCP and open space, historic resources, design review, and implementation. Take notes. I'm going to go quickly. I'm covering a lot, so bear with me. Here we go. Public engagement. Yes, please present to the community planning groups and the rec councils, groups, get their input, work with them. It's important to build support now, and we need to love this plan as much as we love our parks. Higher density housing, smaller size units, more people, that increases the need for parkland. More housing without more parkland does not create a world-class system. In this plan, the parkland is devalued. The policy is only, quote, continue to pursue. So we believe they need to retain a park acreage standard. We found no other city that does not have a clear acreage standard. They may have other things, but they all have an acreage standard. Include minimum protections for passive areas of parks. The point system incentivizes recreational amenities, is what the city calls it, which is anything you want to put in a park, like a bench, a tot lot, a dog park, a different kind of park, sculpture, all have points. And finally, at the last minute before the last hearing, staff put in a minimum percentage for the city park fee to go for parkland acquisition, which we think is very important. The main reason the city says they want to reduce the parkland standard is because land is too expensive. They can't afford it. They want to get the developers out from under those high costs. Well, the way you get parkland, just because we don't meet the standard doesn't mean we should not have a way to measure what we're doing. So we think they need to raise money for it and retain a standard. Funding for parks. The development impact system is not a sufficient source for the entire city's park needs. It cannot be used for operation and maintenance, which is a huge issue. So we're going to need other significant funding sources. And below are some suggestions that we believe deserve looking into. Right now in the recreation element, which sits in the general plan, they have policies to do a nexus study that would establish fees for non-residential uses. Right now, development impact fees are only on residential uses, and in other cities, they are on other uses. You have to do the required studies, determine what the right levels would be. Next, which could apply to Mira Mesa, you should ask the city to put community benefit zoning analysis as part of your community plan update, because the city doesn't need to give the upzones away for free. In downtown, they created this program, and you have to do the studies to determine what the right levels are, but they have raised millions of dollars invested in the community planning area. And this is particularly important, says if they are moving diffs out of the community plan diff accounts, and put them into the centralized fee account, I think it's going to be harder for communities to get money out of the central account, and having community benefit zoning would give you a whole other set of money that you could use in your community. Next, the development impact fee formula is completely changing. Right now, it's pretty straightforward. It's based on planned infrastructure, but they're changing it to a per capita formula. And it has 4 components. It has construction costs, overhead costs, contingency costs, and land costs. Now, the land costs are based upon the cost to build construct more than 20 City of San Diego parks recently built or currently being built. But then they take that acreage figure, which is average, by the way, and they apply a 60% discount to it in the formula that adds up to the development impact fee total. We just want to see the assumptions and the rationale for why 60%, why not 70, why not 30? Transparency is important because the estimates for these fees are more than $1 billion. This is a significant amount of money for parks in the city of San Diego, or actually for anything. But frankly, the best feature, one of the best features of the centralized park fee is that it would be earmarked for parks only. Because right now the city is using the 4 diffs categories as kind of a slush fund. And even though a lot of diffs are paid for parks, a lot of the money gets used for other things, which are probably important things, but they don't go into parks. And finally, the dismantling the FBAs, which I know is an issue in your community. We're not clear that's legal. We've had trouble getting answers to questions about it, but I think I finally did find the language and how they're planning to basically end all existing diffs. FBAs are just one type of diff. They replace that diff with the park fee, and there it is. You keep going.
Before you go on, just 2 questions. You go back
Sure.
one slide.
Sure.
I was just wondering on the community benefit zoning.
Yes.
Does that then go into this central pot also, or does it stay in the community?
No, it stays in the community because it's specifically, the study has to link it to the benefits. That's one of the benefits of it, is that it stays,
Yeah,
that's why it would, of course we have to double check everything with how they implement it, but that's how it's been implemented at downtown.
I mean, that's a good idea, but doesn't that, I mean, that's exactly the motivation for that's the way the FBAs are designed. So
Well, we happen to think,
and then do this other thing.
The FBAs were actually based, as I understand it, on the planned infrastructure, where the zoning and now the benefit zoning is based upon the upzone. The upzone is what creates the increased property values. It's also called land value recapture is the technical term. So it's specifically focused on the zoning increase.
All right.
Okay, and if you have further questions, I'm not an expert on this. I just have a basic understanding, and I'm sure we can get them answered. Shall I go?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. The point system. It's confusing. I recruited volunteers in Pacific Beach. The best part of that was we figured out our complete list of parks, including joint use parks, and we printed out the system, deployed the volunteers to the parks, and they tried to figure out how many points we'd have in the new system versus the old system. Like, are we more or less park deficient? But it's confusing because they combine land with amenities. And so you get odd things such as a 10 square foot sign has the same point value as a 1 acre park. And so this leads to weird incentives, we think. For instance, developers who are choosing to say what parkland to go on their site, they'll have an incentive to have smaller parks with more stuff in them. And we think there needs to be a baseline for certain sizes of parks for certain size developments. So we think that to simplify the system, and we think it would help to separate the land standard from the recreational amenities. It needs to be clarified how it would be used. It's pretty clear that they spent more time with developers than they did with community groups, because developers are going to be using it every week or every day to calculate how much their fees would be and make decisions about what kind of parks they will build or not build. We think they should separate the community planning usage from the development calculation usage, which is mostly about money. But we're unsure why points are useful to us, because if we want a bench or a tot lot or a basketball court, that should be up to the community to decide. We feel strongly each community is unique, and they should be choosing the mix of land and recreational amenities they want. But we're not sure how the points help that. And then because of the concerns and the Building Industry Association comment letter actually expressed concerns about how the point system would be applied over time. So we need to have a process to determine if we're getting the great parks we want out of it. Next, equity. That's a clear organizing principle for the goals of the new plan, because over the years, policies like redlining and other discriminatory policies have shaped the location of freeways, housing, businesses, and parks that affect health in today's urban communities. Specific to parks, researchers have identified that increased heat islands have left some areas several degrees hotter than others. So that's just one example. But in order to achieve equity goals, one has to follow the money, both how it's raised and how it's spent. So we've had some ideas about this. First of all, right now, a large development can build all their parks on site, which is great for them, but it leaves out the rest of the city. So that's part of how we've got some inequities. And we recently learned the city is charging an ad hoc park fee based upon the same theories that they're using in the park master plan, but we don't see that codified in the plan. So if they're doing it now, they should codify it in the new plan. Next, they've estimated that in the new system, there'll be 1.2 billion versus the old system would have brought in 1.1 billion, but they haven't let us see what the assumptions, what the project mixes are. Where is the money coming from? Would it come from one community or another? And we just need the transparency so we can have other eyeballs on that in the public. The prioritization framework I mentioned earlier, that's how it would be allocated. It has been under development already. It was supposed to be released in January. I added my name to the list to be notified. Haven't heard a peep. So, but that needs to come out as soon as possible, because they shouldn't be changing how they're raising and spending $1 billion without understanding the policies on which they're going to spend that money. And then we need sufficient time to review it and feedback. Commercialization of parks. The recreation element has this great language: protect parks from commercialization and privatization. Why would we want to delete that? Well, this park master plan deletes that and replaces it with this. And it's not, we're not against appropriate commercial uses designed to a plan with public, input. But look at the red language. It's not limited to just that nice list. And we can have other retail uses and other similar uses. It's badly written, and there's no controls. So we want them to retain the language to protect parks and commercialization and privatization. And the commercialization should be sufficiently limited. Great cities with great parks control the commercialization. Open space and biodiversity. This is both MSCP lands and other lands. You can put trails into MSCP lands, but we need a sound process and make sure they're consistent with the habitat values. The plan has a lot of language about climate change, but the policies themselves need improvement. They're using old data. They're not addressing a lot of issues with trees, which are quite important. So we need changes to that. And there's a biodiversity group that is working on specifics for that. Historic resources, of which there are many in our parks, not even discussed. They at least should list them. They know what they are. Design matters. One size doesn't fit all. Each community has unique needs. They need to rebuild the design, and the landscape architects who work for the city in the public interest, negotiating with developers. Some of the retired ones are volunteers with our group. They say, yes, we've gotten great parks, but it took a lot of negotiating, and people have really understood how to do that in the public interest. They should reestablish the design review committee, and they should improve the policies for designing and planning parks so that with community input. Implementation, we're concerned that it was offered as a resolution, not an ordinance. Resos are easier to change and not as an enforceable. I already mentioned the prioritization framework. That's the actual council policy and the name of it right there, prioritizing capital improvement program projects. Separate from the Parks Master Plan, there's CP 600-33, which is the process all park projects go through. It needs an update. The last time they updated it, they wanted to eliminate public input and make it faster. We think it needs to be reevaluated to match the goals of the park master plan. And finally, as they did with mobility and housing, require an annual report so we can monitor how it's going and make changes. We know the city's invested a lot in this already. There's a lot of great things in there, but we're being specific. We have the time to do this. I think it was pushed through to the artificial election deadline, but we can have the time to take it out and talk to community groups, get their input, and figure out how to have the best plan. Finally, just a quick reminder, so important to our physical, mental, and emotional health, especially during the pandemic. The activity in parks has gone up, up, up. But let us remember that proximity to parks and open spaces increases property values. So there is quite a bit of benefit financially to having good park plans with new developments, and that they can usually afford to pay appropriate and fair park fees. What we'd like you to do tonight is make a motion, send a letter to your desire. If not this language, I'm sure you'll collect your own. But basically, these areas need improvement, and we'd like to come back to the cities and groups before it comes back to City Council. Thank you very much. A park is a living, growing thing, and we need to fix this parks plan. So thank you for your time, and I'll be happy to answer any questions I can.
All right, questions? Let's see, can you turn off your screen for the time being?
I can stop sharing. That's good. If anybody wants has questions afterwards, just take down my email address, or I can put it in the chat too.
Yes, put it in the chat, please.
Okay, thank you.
All right, questions for Carolyn? Justin?
Questions, comments? First of all, this is a very informative presentation, so thank you for putting that all together. It's really kind of an eye-opener for us. The first question I have is, what did Kearny Mesa do? Because you mentioned that other cities use the acreage calculation, which I thought was interesting. Just as far as analog is concerned, I think it would be good for us to understand what has happened with the community plan update in Kearny Mesa and how they have dealt with this issue.
Well, just to be honest, I don't know directly. It's been an issue that's been mentioned by Councilmember Kate at both of the hearings, at the final and the subcommittee hearing. They did the plan update based upon the existing policies. And the implementation of this is they are basically replacing, well, there's two things. One, the city hasn't done any diff updates or public facilities financing elements for the new plans. At least they didn't do ones for the trolley that I've been involved in. And I've told by other planners they haven't done any of them for like 6 years. So basically they left the existing diff fees in place, and then they're not doing them in the new plans because they want to shift to this new system.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're trying to get a lot of this information and it's not very forthcoming. I think that's part of the problem. We have a lot of unanswered questions.
That's an understatement.
Yeah, and so it's difficult to really even weigh in on this until we understand exactly it is what you're trying to figure out, which is what is the money, what do the sources and uses look like, right? Where's it coming from? Who's paying for it? What is it going to really look like when we start rolling out our new zoning? You know, so it's sort of uncharted territory, and it may be worse than the existing system that we have, or there's a better system. It's sort of
you're exactly right, and that's why we focused on these, trying to get answers to these questions. And by the way, the council vote was close. It was 5 votes no and 4 votes yes. But one of the specific things Campbell asked, well, he had 4 issues with it, but the first one was unanswered questions. And I think Jeff can confirm he's been asking questions too.
Yes.
And I don't like a city where you can't get your questions answered. Which is part of why we're going out to the groups, because we need other people to say, yeah, answer these questions. It's important. I mean, it was shocking at the hearing that nobody asked, well, where's that $1 billion coming from, and over what time frame? I mean, they put it in the staff report, nobody asked about it. $1 billion. I was like appalled.
Yeah. So, we're property owners in Miramar. We've been in Miramar since the early 80s. We're all for beautification. We're all for more parks. I totally agree with your statement that with parks, you increase the property values. It's a win-win for everyone if it's done correctly. The only concern I have if I put on my property owner hat is, what is it going to cost? What is it going to do to the property values and the cost of construction and our development impact fees if we are looking at a rezoning for multifamily use, which is a small unit format like you've suggested, which could be good for Miramar. I'm not going to weigh in on that, but all of a sudden, will that work if all of a sudden our DIF fees are huge per unit? I mean, already they are now, and they're probably going to have to address that based on square footage of the units.
Okay, so just
it's a numbers game.
Well, yes, but just to address that, so Mark Kersey voted against it because he tried to make a motion to stop the increases in DIF fees in the communities where it's happening, because if it's a little bit like comparing apples and oranges in the new system, the old system. However, a bunch of us have been thinking about this a lot. And in some cases, the fees will go up, and in some cases, the fees will go down. And in FBA communities, they'll tend to go down because the FBA communities are newer, and they also had a more solid connection to the planned infrastructure, okay? Right. Because they're disconnecting the funding from the planned infrastructure and changing it to being based strictly on their estimates of per capita usage of housing in varying square footage. They actually have a chart because they have a declining scale based upon the size of the house, because in smaller houses, they say on average, less people live in it. And then they cap it at 2,500 feet for the maximum. So you could have a 4,000 square foot house with 5 people living in it, but you're still going to pay the fee if with 2,500 with 3.4 people living in it. And they've got a nexus study that lays all this out. And, it's a consultants benefit association, I think, likes this plan. I think that because it is complicated.
Yeah, I mean, there should be a formula, which I'm sure is complicated. And it sounds like there is.
Yeah, there is.
Look at our, and I'm sure Alex can weigh in on this. When we look at how we're going to rezone, have all of our zoning laid out, and we say, all right, if we build to the max, this is how much park space we need, and it needs to go somewhere. It's a math problem.
Yeah, but they're changing it from need to choice. Okay, so the points represent a combination of recreational amenities as part of what makes it confusing, because they're basically saying, well, we think you can't get any more land, which is just what I hate to use this term, but it's kind of like a big lie, because some of the architects we're working with say, I'll take on a walk in every community in the city and I could find a way to do parkland. Plus, as you do redevelopment, you can't say you're built out for parkland as long as you're redeveloping. That's just a formula for more people and less parks, and that's what we're trying to solve.
Yeah. There's too much uncertainty. I get it. Yeah.
More people need more parks, and frankly, if we could have had a dialogue with the planning people and had a discussion about the assumptions, we'd probably move on to some other things, But until they answer some of these fundamental questions, it's hard to know what we're really dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
So Carolyn, let me just ask, it's really hard for me to see anything of real value in this. It has the potential to derail our most important park projects. And I don't see it providing any more parks or trails or anything in this area.
That could be true.
I mean,
I have to say there's a lot of good flowery language. I call them planning platitudes.
Yeah, there's a lot of that for sure.
And we're asking for a lot of changes. I mean, I mean, there's some in our group that think, you know, you just ought to scrap it, but we just don't think they're going to do that. The building industry is behind this, and they've cut a deal with some areas that think they're going to get more money from the citywide fee. So that's, you know, the politics of it a little bit.
Okay. More
I would
questions?
think, I would ask you to have a motion that says that it needs to be presented to planning groups before it comes back to city council at the very least. Or you could just say you oppose it. I mean, up to you.
Okay. What I would suggest is a motion that says the recommendations of the Park and Recreation Council improve the make some improvements in the proposed Parks Master Plan. But it still has a lot of inadequacies, and it needs to come back to the planning groups and park recreation councils before it goes back for approval. And that specifically for the FBA communities, the plan will derail many planned park projects rather than enhancing them. And therefore the FBA programs need to be preserved until all the projects in them are completed.
I'll second that.
Justin?
I suggest in addition to that, I think that's really good. And maybe we need some sort of level of certainty as to how this point system will work. Maybe there needs to be some sort of min or max.
Some sort of what, pardon?
Some sort of minimum or maximum, just some certainty as to, you know, maybe a calculation that can be made to say, with this rezoning, this is the minimum park space that you will have to provide. And
well, that's a separate issue from the Parks Master Plan. That would be, I mean, this is totally separate from the plan update, except for it's a system that would go into effect for the new plan is what you're getting at.
Yes, correct. Exactly.
So that, but so I guess so what the change you're suggesting would be that you would understand the impacts on the community plan update.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
What it would look like as we're going through it, it's going to be, you know, a year or so. We're going to have some answers. We're going to know what the rezoning looks like. And this is what, okay, Jeff is talking about the existing park plans that we have in the FBA financing, which I think he's right. We don't want to mess with that. But as we roll out the new community plan update, what are the requirements going to look like? And I think then everyone can get a level of comfort to say, oh, it's a minimum of 10 acres, and it's going to go here, there, and you know.
Well, no, see, that's the thing.
Yeah.
It would be 14 points per 1,000 in the plan, and the points can be made up of a combination of land and amenities.
So that,
and right now, it's up to developers to decide.
And so that's the moving target where all of a sudden you can get a bunch of signs in place of parks, which is, that's why I'm suggesting they say, okay, at the very least, there has to be X number of acreage. And everyone can say, okay, well, that's the minimum requirement. At least we know we're going to get that. And we're all happy that we're going to get 10 acres, 20 acres, whatever it is. And we can all agree and say, you know, let the point system be, let them swap, but there has to be a minimum. So that way you don't get a bunch of signs instead of parks.
Yeah, the way we've thought about that is there needs to be a baseline.
That's right.
Before they can start stuffing it with
That's
stuff.
what I'm saying. Exactly.
So let me read back this motion for you because I was typing. If you don't, is that okay, Jeff?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm glad you're doing that because I didn't have it written down. So.
Yeah, motion. We support the recommendations of Park to improve the Parks Master Plan. There are many inadequacies and it needs to come back to community planning groups and recreational advisor groups before it goes forward to City Council. For FBA communities, the plan would derail many, we could say appear to derail many parks plans, and FBAs need to be conserved until the projects are completed. We understand we also need to understand the impacts of the Park Master Plan changes in park fees and in parks in the community in park acreage in the community plan update. And to understand the minimum amount of park acreage. So I'll fix that somehow.
Yeah, and there's no need to change the would to and appear to as far as the impact of the FBA on planned park projects.
Actually, I don't know why I said that because I don't have it typed in here. Let me fix this up and then I'll put it in the chat.
Okay.
Any more questions?
This is Mary. What was the first sentence of your motion that you just read?
We support, this is Jeff's motion. We support the recommendations of park to improve the park master plan.
Okay, I didn't get that from Jeff. So
okay, you can
Jeff, I'll send you what I have in the meeting minutes and then you can tweak it. But I wrote from what you said was that you made a motion that the Parks and Rec Coalition need to make some improvements towards the FBA communities and preserving their existing projects. And I added that they explain in more detail the impact to Mira Mesa's community plan updates. You never said we support the Parks Master Plan, Jeff.
Oh, no, I didn't say that.
I didn't say that either.
You did not say that in your motion, right?
Okay, what I actually said, maybe it's better to phrase it this way, is that the just an acknowledgement that the recommendations of the Park and Recreation Council, which was just presented here,
Coalition
do improve the do make significant improvements to the parks master plan, but that it still has major inadequacies. You got that, Carolyn?
Well, it depends on how you want to start it. Do you want to support, see, I was phrasing it that you would support the recommendation, the improvement areas to make it kind of broad. But what does the secretary have? I mean, if she's got it, that's fine.
I typed what Jeff was saying just now, and I'm going to send this to Jeff after so that you could tweak it. But so I have a couple things going here. So Jeff's motion is that we acknowledge that this presentation does make significant improvements, but still has shortcomings, and that the Parks and Rec Coalition need to make some improvements towards the FBA communities in preserving their existing projects, and explain in more detail the impact to Mira Mesa's community plan, current community plan updates.
So I think you got the beginning of it a little more accurately, but I think Carolyn got the middle of it a little better on the FBA explanation.
Okay, how about if I copy this into the chat and then Carolyn can tweak it.
Okay, let me try this. We appreciate the recommendations of Park to make improvements to the Parks Master Plan. There are many additional inadequacies, and the plan needs to come to the community planning groups and recreational advisory groups before it goes forward to City Council. For FBA communities, the plan would derail many park plans, and FBAs need to be conserved until the FBA projects are completed. We need to understand the impacts of the Park Master Plan changes on park fees and park acreage related to the community plan update.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
You put that in the chat and then I'll just copy that into the meeting minutes. And so that's Jeff's motion. I second the motion.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any additional discussion?
I have one additional item. If we allow the city to remove the acreage requirement for thousands of people, we're all going downhill after that.
You're absolutely right. And that is one of their major recommendations.
That's the baseline piece that should be in there.
Yeah. I just point out, by the way, it really is very important. When we did the last community plan update in the late 1980s, the community was about half built and we were quite deficient in parks at that time. it was that acreage requirement that allowed us to add all of the new parks to the community, because the city tried, because I was in there, they tried really hard to meet it. And so we got Camino Ruiz Park and the additions to the community park, and Lopez Ridge Park and Westview Park. All of those we got because of that acreage requirement. If it hadn't been for that, if they had this point system, they probably would have just added some amenities to Mesa Verde and Sandberg and the 5 or so existing parks. So it really is important, particularly for communities that are in the earlier stages of development or that are deficient.
People need to understand one thing. The city right now is concentrating their ambitions on building housing for people. And parks are not part of that, other than they provide acreage where you can build housing. So this thing with keeping the parks acreage active is really critical to the communities in the future, because we'll wind up with cities built around a 1 acre park with 100,000 people going over there to walk their dog.
Yeah, but there'll be lots of stuff in that 1 acre, right? All right, so that's the motion.
I'm typing it in.
Okay.
Communities.
I think we can go ahead and vote on this unless.
I can keep typing after you proceed. I won't disappear without typing it in.
Let me just ask, is there anyone who would not vote yes on this motion?
Say that again, Jeff. This is Mike Linton.
Yeah, Mike.
Can you say that again?
Oh, I was just asking if we could get a approval by acclamation on this one, or if anyone has if anyone would vote no or need to abstain on this.
I'm going to abstain because it doesn't give much information right now, and we are already voting something that we don't have full information on it.
Yeah, I'm going to abstain too, Jeff.
So Harkey and Mike will abstain. Okay. Anyone else?
We're actually requesting more information is what we're doing.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I think the motion impact is to obtain transparency rather than hand waving.
All right, so I have the motion in the chat now. Let me go ahead and read it back again. We appreciate the recommendations of Park to make improvements to the Parks Master Plan. There are many additional inadequacies, and the PMP needs to come to community planning groups and recreational advisory groups before it goes back to the City Council. In the FBA communities, the plan would derail many parks, that should be park projects, not park plans.
Okay.
And FBAs need to be conserved until the FBA projects are completed. We also need to understand the impacts of the PMP changes on park fees and park acreage in the community plan update.
A mini park. Any other typos? There.
Okay, good. Actually, Mary, can you just call the roll on this one?
Yes, okay. Lilith?
Yes.
Lil?
Yes.
Okay. And then Joe
Yes.
and Jeff,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Mike is abstaining. Justin?
C. Yes.
I'm sorry, what?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Craig?
Yes.
Which one?
Craig Jackson. Sorry. I have Haruki is abstain, and Rose?
Yes.
I think that was asking for Rose.
Rose, yeah, Rose Wang.
Yes.
Okay. Bari? Bari, you're on mute. Bari, bye.
Yes. It took a few tries to get off
Yeah.
mute. Yes.
Okay, Craig Radke.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, Kent Lee. You're on mute, Kent. Kent. We still can't hear you, Kent.
I saw Kent
Kent
with a
Lee.
little baby. He's probably dealing with the baby.
Oh, okay. Okay, Bruce Brown.
Yes.
Okay. And me, Mary Lightcap, yes. So that's 1, 2. We'll count Kent as abstaining then, or nay.
Let's give him a minute to come back.
Okay.
I would just exclude him as if he weren't here unless,
Jeff, can you unmute him and see if we have background noise that we can get through?
That may wake up the baby.
I can ask him to unmute himself. I can't actually unmute it. I can mute people, but I can't unmute them from here.
No.
Hey, Kent, are you there somewhere? I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll go on with the meeting and we'll come back just for that one vote. I think we have a list of everyone else who's in favor or abstained on it.
Yep, we have 11 in favor and 2 abstained. And then Kent. So.
Hey, sorry about that. Someone was right. Whoever was saying I was dealing with baby. I missed the portion of that at the end, so I think for now I'll abstain.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. I'm putting my email in the chat if you have other questions afterwards or Jeff has it. And if we start getting answers, we'll let you know.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ken, I would actually rather have a yes from you on that unless you have an issue with it.
Yeah, but I think I missed a portion of the presentation towards the end of it. So, Carolyn, would it be possible to get a copy of it as well?
Yeah, Jeff has it.
Yeah, I've got the motion.
No, he's got the presentation too.
And the presentation. Actually, I sent that to you already.
Yes, we all have that, I think.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we'll leave you as an abstention.
So that's 1103 then, right?
Right.
All right. Good night, everybody. Stay well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Do contact me if you have any questions. I'll try and get answers. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Okay. Carolyn's been very good at answering my questions, by the way, so appreciate her. Bruce may remember they were on the planning commission at the same time a few years ago.
Yeah, I was on there 4 years with her.
Okay. Elected officials. Who do we have here? I see Luis. Go ahead, Luis.
Hey, how's it going, Jeff? A couple of quick things. I know that, Jeff, you asked a question regarding the vote to change the distinction between FBA and DIF in 2016. I believe it was just a legal distinction that was done, but I'm going to go pull the old council meeting to see what the rationale was. But obviously, FBA is really important to us and getting those projects funded. So I'll go double check to see what the difference was. But obviously, council members gone on record a number of times in support of making sure we get the funding done to get these projects finished. So whatever we can do to make sure that the Mira Mesa Community Park and all those follow suit get funded, we're going to keep trying to do.
Thank you, Luis. Anything else?
Yeah, one more bit of good news. I think you remember in November, we were able to pass the commercial paper allocation for the funding for Gold Coast and Parkdale. So the last update I got, we're just waiting to award the construction contract for that project. I'm going to check back in with Public Works if they have an updated timeline, but our last conversation, It was just a matter of getting that funding done and then working to authorize a contract to get that work started. So hopefully we can get an estimated timeline on when it's going to get done. But the last update I had is that they're just working on authorizing that contract.
All right. Any questions for Luis?
Yeah, which contract is that again, Luis? You were cutting in and out a little bit. I didn't get that.
Sure. That's for the repaving of Gold Coast and Parkdale. So back in November,
Okay.
the city council approved the commercial paper, include the fund.
So you're just waiting to award?
Yeah, waiting to award that contract for construction.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Luis, you need to upgrade your internet a little bit. You tend to, most of the time, you come pretty choppy. So.
I'll put that on my to-do list, Jeff.
Talk to the new mayor.
Speaking of which, we have Michaela Volk from Mayor Gloria's office. You're on next.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Happy New Year. My name is Michaela, and I'm the Director of Community Engagement for Mayor Todd Gloria. I'll also be overseeing Council District 6 for the mayor. I'm very accessible via email, via phone, if you need to contact me. I've already had one-on-ones with Jeff, Justin, Barry, and I do see a few familiar faces like Patty and Kent. So I do know a few folks in Mira Mesa, but I'm happy to get to know more of you. So let me get into my report. I did take down the motion that was made regarding the FBA and the park master plan. I'll convey it back to our policy team. From my understanding, like was mentioned, the park master plan was asked to go back to staff to be reworked. Our office is still, like myself, a lot of us are freshmen to City Hall, and so we're getting up to date on a lot of various policies. And so right now it's a lot of conversations with stakeholders, and I'll see if our policy point of contact can also have a meeting with Jeff just to know the intricacies with Mira Mesa specifically. But there haven't been any updates yet that have been provided to us regarding the park master plan. As soon as I receive information, I'll share it with Jeff. Today, the mayor announced that we were able to allocate $42 million in emergency rental assistance that will be provided to the San Diego Housing Commission for residents who need rental relief. On Tuesday, he's bringing forward a proposal to extend the eviction protections for renters and businesses to the city council. Prior to the new year, he signed his first executive order to put enforcement behind the state and local public health orders, allowing SDPD and the city attorney's office to issue citations as well as cease and desists to businesses that aren't following the public health order. It is a three-step system. The first is education. If you do want to report a business that is not following the public health order, we encourage you to do so via Get It Done. And you can also follow up with myself. With that, parking enforcement is only enforced with the red, white, and blue parking areas. And lastly, the mayor did reach an agreement with SDG&E to extend the franchise agreement to June 1st. March 1st, we will open a new invitation to bid, and we'll be seeking community feedback and opening a survey very shortly. And that's it for me this evening. I'll provide my information in the chat as well in case you want to email me. And nice to meet you all.
Thanks, Michaela. Thank you for coming to our meeting. We'll look forward to having you here in the future. Are there any questions from anyone else for the Michaela or the mayor's office at this time?
Yeah, this is Mary. I didn't catch where that $42 million is coming from for our rental relief.
It is coming from existing funds that are available. So it's a little bit of a shift. So it's existing city funds.
Wow, okay.
Wow. $1 million here, $1 million there. Before you know it, you got real money.
Yeah, I can look specifically. It could be from previous assistance that wasn't used, that the federal government provided. I know it's not new federal money that's been allocated, because that would be way too soon, since inauguration day was just yesterday. So it's existing funds, not sure where from exactly, but it's funds that were already given to the city.
Any more questions? All right, thank you very much, Michaela. I don't see any other elected officials here. If there are any, would you please speak up? Okay, then, are there any announcements that anyone has?
Yeah, I have a couple.
Go ahead.
The upgrade to the Sauk Park is supposed to start in June of 2021. The upgrade to Wagenheim is supposed to start in May of 2021. And phase 2 for our pool and skateboard plaza in the middle of Mira Mesa is scheduled to start construction in March of 2022 if the city does not take that money away from us. These things were scheduled last May in 2020. And because of this COVID-19 stuff, they have not started yet. So they've rescheduled them for a year later. God knows how much money money that's going to cost us, but we hope that they can make this designation in May and June, and then get the rest of it on our pool in March of 2022.
Thank you, Joe.
I'm sorry, Joe. What was the park in June 2021?
That is the Sauk Park.
Okay, Sauk was in June, and then the next park was what?
Wagenheim is in May.
Oh, May. Okay, that's what threw me. You started with June and then went back to May.
Well, because Sauk starts with an S and Wagenheim starts with a W.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
There you go.
there you go.
Sorry about
Okay, thank you.
We need a shovel for that one, Joe.
Any other
Thanks.
announcements? Okay, CPC report. We had a Zoom meeting on November 24th. There was discussion of a proposed regulation for regulating short-term residential occupancy that had been developed by Jennifer Campbell. There was a lot of resistance to it. A lot of the members thought it had insufficient regulation and were particularly concerned about the exemption of Mission Beach from it. We have another meeting on January 26th. At that one, we will have the Parks Master Plan and the changes to 624 that were recommended by the city attorney up for discussion. All right, Penasquitos Canyon, Pam.
Hi, let's see, yeah, I'm not muted, am I? No, you
Not.
can hear me? Good. Okay, we had a brief meeting tonight. We didn't have a formal meeting. Am I echoing? The door opened between the room I'm in and I hear myself. There we go. The cat's been coming in and out. Okay. One thing that came up at our meeting tonight was concern about overuse of the preserve. During the pandemic, lots of people have discovered it, which is great, but people are going in and not respecting trails. They're cutting across meadows. Somebody said that he counted 78 people at the waterfalls on a nice weekend in December, the day that he was there. And we're going to need to do a public outreach campaign to treat it gently, preserve the preserve. You want this place to be a place for the animals that you like to see, and the plants and the wild experience. And there's a lot of public education and outreach. So a subcommittee was going to be getting together next week to talk about that. I mentioned that I was probably going to be leaving early to come to this meeting because we had our discussion of Parks Master Plan, and there is concern from the standpoint of the Preserve CAC that Parks Master Plan all seems to be more about recreation. Frank Landis, who's our chair of CAC, and I and Jeff, we may want to make sure that we're all on the same wavelength, because there's another whole layer of concern there for citywide and for open space. Coming up at our meeting in March, we're going to have our board elections, so it probably would be time to reappoint myself as rep and Craig Radke as alternate. If we would both be interested again, I would be interested again.
Oh, yes, we should do that. I neglected to put it on the agenda, but I think since it's a internal business, we can go ahead with that. Can I get a motion to approve Pam representative and Craig as alternate?
Jeff, I'm up for re-election though in March, and I'm termed out, right? So there's a possibility I may not be on the planning group after March.
We will, in that case.
Then you'll readjust.
We'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Okay, yeah, fine.
Serve in the meantime. Okay, there's a motion from Joe, I believe. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Craig?
Yeah.
All right. Anyone disagree with the motion? In that case.
Sorry, the motion, sorry, Jeff, the motion was to have Pam remain on the committee?
To have
Not Craig?
Pam be the rep. No, the motion was to have Pam represent the planning group at the Penasquitos Canyon Citizens Advisory Committee with Craig Radke as her alternate.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone have any discussions or disagreement with that motion? If not, I don't think we really need to take a roll call on that, so we'll just call that approved by acclamation.
You. And we'll have our meeting on the third Thursday in March. Oh, and we had a representative from City Council. There was a rep to the new council member, Marnie von Welpert was there. What was his name? He was. No.
Was it Jack Hopridge?
Yes, that sounds right. Thank you. Yes, Jack. And he had gone out hiking with Frank Landis on the Mira Mesa, and seems like a good guy to have in the loop.
All right. Is there any other business tonight?
Thank you, Jeff. A great meeting.
That's the end of the agenda, so we are adjourned. Thank you all for coming. See you in February.
Okay. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.